an adept from the root Sid, S-I-D-H. And Siddhasana. There's lots of different variations, but we can just try, if you want, the one with the, one foot in front of the other. Both feet are lined up with the midline of the body, or any other comfortable seated position if this is not comfortable. And then the chest elevated and the shoulders descended. And the seat settles. The seat settles, which means that, you know, the bum and the legs. We should let ourselves arrive. Now, even before we start using out loud the bija mantra Haum, H-A-U-M, it's actually not H-A-U-M, but that's what the International Alphabet of Sanskrit Transliteration represents, the sounds. It's Haum. You'll notice that the H is more open, the M is more nasal, it's more contracted, it's more focused. We can even, before we, as I say, start practicing it out loud, we're going to imagine that sound traveling home right the way through the central channel a few times, as it were, internally, really wide and powerful at the pelvic floor, and pushing its way up through and narrowing as it pushes its way through the final blockages from the forehead center to several little blockages between that and its target, which is a point at the crown of the head, or in some practices just beyond the crown of the head. And depending on which tradition you're practicing in, it means different things, but in the Shakta tradition or the Shaiva tradition, it's usually described as connecting the goddess with consciousness itself. So Shakti with Shiva, Shiva being on the crown of the head, Shakti being at the pelvic floor. And of course, it's just symbolic of the recognition that everything is suffused with consciousness. Everything ultimately is consciousness, which we want to physically, ritually point to like this. So we're connecting pelvic floor with the crown of the head, merging back the manifest, that's the goddess, with the consciousness that perceives it. So we're going to practice that 3 times. Haum. Really focus on visceral feeling. Really try to feel it. Take a deep breath in for the first. Haum. Right up through the crown of the head. And deep breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft, throat soft, brain soft. Noticing the way the breath is, and letting the seat really settle. It's nothing to do with making the seat settle. Notice the words were letting, you could say allowing the seat to settle. a couple of rounds or a few rounds. One round meaning usually something like 6 or 7 individual breaths of Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati, Kapala is skull, Bhati means to shine or to polish or to make bright or to radiate. So Kapalabhati is to make the mind like gold radiate. And it's a relatively simple technique. It's relatively slow inhales and dramatic or dynamic, perhaps is a better word, dynamic exhalations. Oftentimes one can use the ujjayi for the inhalation if you want, but it's basically you can only breathe in what you're able to expel in one sharp abdominal pullback. So you want to measure the amount of inhale by how much you can push out in one exhale. So it's a very, very brief demonstration. And so on. And we're just going to do one round, but imagine that you're polishing the head. One round is constituted by when you start losing rhythm. That's the end of that round, okay? Usually it's about 6 or 7 breaths. So when you're ready, you can begin. Passive, passive, relaxed, relaxed. Just polished up, shone, shining, golden, shining, brightening the mind, brightening the kapala, the skull. Coming slow and easy out of our seated position into a version of balasana, where I'm going to recommend 2 blocks. This version of balasana keeps the anterior spine open. Obviously, if you don't have blocks, you can use anything, but as long as one is high and one is low, and there's obviously a few versions of high and low. That's one version that I've got there. Here's another version of high and low. And here's another version of high and low. In other words, the head is lower than the hands. So that's the sort of highest version, and you can lower it from there if you want. You start by kneeling. You can put blocks between the heels and buttocks. If you do have a block between the heels and buttocks, you're definitely going to want minimum of this height. That's the minimum if you've got a block between the heels and buttocks. Otherwise, this is good for anyone, everyone, to rest the forehead and the arms, or one of the lower settings that I showed already. One of the other reasons, apart from having a block between the heels and buttocks, for having the higher lift would be that if you felt too squashed in your organs, internal organs, or if you felt the stretch in the spine was too much, or you just want to feel that space of the central channel, then a higher lift is very, very enjoyable. But as I say, you're welcome also to take a lower lift if you want. And then I'm going to guess I've probably said it about 612 times. It's all in my life. It's not that many. It's all about the breath. Maybe I've said it more than that. Meaning that the breath is the center of our practice because it's the mechanism by which we listen and respond here and now. It's a wonderful stretch. I could happily stay quite a bit longer. The back really likes it in the mornings, but we'll slow and easy come out when we're ready. And we're going to come into Adho Mukha Svanasana a couple of different ways. The regular shoulder width and hip width to start us. So shoulder width and hip width, Adho Mukha Svanasana, very, very calm. So this word in Sanskrit, shamatha, meaning very, very calm. And of course, we know the Yoga Sutra very much focuses on the small part that it devotes to asana. It very much focuses on relaxation and ease. So relaxation and ease constitutes 50% of what the Yoga Sutra has to say about yoga postures, that the attitude should have ease and relaxation. So we must check our own practice for that if we want to really practice yoga. Now, the reason why relaxation and ease are so important is because when you slip into relaxation and ease, you will also begin to disappear into the richness of the moment. Which negates any clinging. There's nothing you can find to cling to. So if you don't cling, you wake up. You wake up, that is, to the interdependent reality. The power of now manifests as what in yoga we call shaktis, which is power. Okay, coming back down. And as promised, we're going to do a couple of different variations. This next variation, you're going to have your hands like that, like a beautiful sunrise, which we actually have got, a beautiful sunrise kicking into the room. So hands like a beautiful sunrise, feet together or close. So the whole thing is sort of squashed into a teeny little space. It's ideal for anyone who wants to do their yoga in a galley, on a boat, for example, little tiny thin space. Breathing, playing, investigating how you might get energy, consciousness, awareness through the back. So that could include moving your pelvis, could include padding the heels. Great. When you come out, turn your hands forwards again. Take them very, very wide. And your feet also very, very wide. And we're in another version of Adho Mukha Svanasana. That is the very, very wide version. Yeah, that's it. You got it. Perfect. Breathe through your nose, if you can. Send some energy through your back. Abhyasa, again and again and again and again and again, and lose yourself in this sort of liquid moment, as it were. Yeah. Very good. Okay, slow and easy and calm. Coming to a kneeling position, for which, of course, you can use block or a blanket between the heels and buttocks, one hand resting on the other. Breathing, if you can, through the nose without holding the breath. Dropping the shoulders. Letting your bum settle into your heels. Many of us have some nervousness, we could say, imprinted into the nervous system, a sense of never quite settling, always being, ready to jump. And that's, oftentimes been conditioned into the nervous system through a variety of different causes. The most fundamental cause, the most sort of unified cause of all anxiety and tension in the nerves is the belief, the indoctrinated belief, the radical fundamentalist religious belief in a particular deity that most people are conditioned to believe in no matter what, and that is the deity or the avatar called me, myself, I, with its associative mine. So we get taught that because, we're told you are like this, you are like that, you should do this, you should do that. So we start believing that there is a person. People seem to address it, and there are certain areas, and like, it seems to be in this area that they're looking in. There seems to be a me, myself, and I. And then we try to make it, because we're told that it exists, out of the things people tell us. Associations to do with age, to do with gender, to do with whatever, upbringing, political bias, religious bias, I don't know. Now from here we're going to come out and we're going to perch. Now, perching may be enough in and of itself, so be ready to just stay perched. You don't have to perch up like that, but it could be a little challenge to yourself if you want to try a little perch jump. Or you could just climb up like an old woodpecker, like Professor Yaffle from Bagpuss. Who knows who that is? Oh, it's worth a try. No, jump, don't give up. Don't give up. Breathe through your nose, nice and calm. So we're just squatting. Now, Professor Yaffle, by the way, was a sort of wooden woodpecker from the program. He was from the program Bagpuss. Anyway, you might want to just stay perched like that, breathing into it. You can stretch through your back. If you want to add a bit more stretching to the pelvic floor muscles, take your arms forwards and press back into your shins. And that brings a really positive increase to the stretch all the way along the back. So if there's any hypertension there. And so this is, again, a place that many of us will be very, very happy to alight, to stay, to remain. If you wanted to, you could also, some people want to lean forwards, that's fine. Some people want to lift the bums up, that's fine. Some people want to lift the feet up, that's fine. So there's all these options. And what's great is they're all useful, whether it's the squatting, whether it's the squatting with the arms pressing back, or whether it's a lifting up. Okay, calmly coming back where you were, sitting on a block or maybe two. If you're on two, you'll need another block behind you. I'm only going to sit on one, but if you're on two, you're going to need another block behind you. You're going to stretch your legs out. And then you draw the buttock flesh out and back. Then you sit up tall and light and breathe. So this is Dandasana, and it's very important to draw the buttock flesh out and back. So out and back means diagonally. So I tend to, when I adjust one buttock, I lean the body diagonally the other way. So you've got a two-directional action going on. The leaning, of course, helps to tilt the pelvis. So that helps us to then draw the buttock flesh out and back. We take a few deep breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft. I'm going to say, that you might find a belt useful in a minute. I'm not going to use a belt, but some of you might find a belt useful. So have one ready. We're going to bend the leg. You're going to bend the leg that's furthest from me, just as I'm bending the leg that's furthest from you. And bring your fingers around your shin and breathe through your nose and relax. As the Yoga Sutra says, it's 50% of the instructions of yoga are be easeful and relaxed. Easeful and relaxed. And it's arguable that the last two have a similar, the last 50% of what Patanjali said. because he says stitihi, and which could imply that you should be steady in your relaxation, in your easefulness. But steadiness also implies a sense of holism, a sense of fluidity. That which is most steady, that which is most strong, is that which is most fluid. And he also, of course, tells us to be focused on the infinite, which is a form of meditative surrender in the moment. So this is great just to be in this position, but we're going to place the opposite hand to the bent leg on the floor, and then the same hand as the bent leg is going to reach up, perhaps towards the foot. Some people are anatomically biased towards the ability in this pose by having short legs and long arms. So that's, that makes it easy to hold the foot. So don't feel sad if you can't reach your foot. It just might mean you've got really, really nice long legs, and so there you go, rather than short legs. So you can reach wherever you get to in breathing. Then from there, and I'm going to need to move this sand plus candles. From there, you bring your arm around underneath the leg. And this is where we might need the patika, the belt, because we're going to bridge the gap with the belt or hold one hand with the other. And we turn. Leaning forwards is fine if it's from the pelvis and the chest. And so the spine keeps much of its normal, natural alignment. But if it's making us really flex very, very strongly over the abdomen, it can be worth using a block under the foot. Even lifting up just for fun anyway can be quite nice. You might want to try it. You can feel how much more open the spine is. So again, anatomically, someone with a longer shin bone will find this easier than someone with a shorter shin bone. So the variations include clasping, but also just pressing like this is fine as well. But one way or the other, if you're not clasping, the next part is reaching with a belt for the foot, or if you are clasping, you simply turn your body towards your extended leg. And as you turn, you press, and those two things are mixed together, turning and pressing. So this is Marichasana, number 1. Here you come. And I love this pose because it doesn't allow for gripping, grasping, grabbing. It really makes it clear that gripping, grasping, grabbing actually constitute making a wall. As soon as grasping comes in, the whole thing starts to become rigid. But when there's no grasping, then fluidity remains. Ergo, it's all about fluidity. Calmly back to the twist. Calmly release. Calmly take a deep breath. Stretch out your leg. Don't move your block unless you're me, and I am me, so I am. But you're not me, and apart from you are on an ultimate level, but it's not going to that right now. Just draw the buttocks flesh out and back. And bend the other leg similarly. And similarly, you're going to lift. Just take the straight leg out a little bit. Remember, you can take variations like this, no, not clasping at all, and like this with the belt. So those are your variations if the pose is It really feels tricky otherwise. So extending forwards, just getting a bit of movement in the hamstrings. You might not get anywhere near the foot. That's totally fine, as long as you're just finding ways to massage tensions in the breath, in the body, in the brain. So if you thought the goal was to reach the foot, that's, just bend your knee and reach your foot. It's not that hard, but the point isn't to touch the foot. The point is to turn and extend. So reaching the knee or the shin, or even just pushing a little forward, even using a belt around the foot at this point. Just ways to massage tensions out of the lumbar. Massaging tensions out of the lumbar. So breath, 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 breath. So I could enjoy that station very, very much for quite a long time, but we're going to extend the arm forwards and round, or take hold with a belt, or not even clasping. It's perfectly fine. You simply press and turn. As we're looking for lift, we're looking for lightness. Again, if you have a clasp, sometimes it's nice to experiment with lifting the foot. I find that quite nice to do. You might want to experiment with that, picking the whole leg up temporarily. It can be quite nice. Teaching for the spaciousness and ungrasping nature of the back. That the foot that we're lifting is the bent leg foot. And I could do that for a while. And then turning towards the extended leg and melting as we move. So it really does need to be a parigraha, empty of grasping, and particularly empty of grasping the concepts of the pose, what we think the pose is supposed to look like. Such a terrible error that's happened in the last 80, 90 years, probably even less, has come about through photography, making people horribly confused about what yoga is. Looking at pictures and thinking, I'm supposed to trying to make myself look like that shape. You couldn't be more, you couldn't have taken a more wrong turning. The sat nav was going crazy, like, no, go back, you've gone the wrong way. So thinking of what the pose is supposed to look like and then trying to achieve that's, you've taken a wrong turning. The sat nav can't even re-navigate that. You're just going away from where you're supposed to be going, So take your mind off what you think the pose is supposed to look like. Stop immediately grasping. Surrender now. Any drives, because drives in yoga and in life deepen karma. And remember, the whole goal of yoga is to come out of karmic cycles. So if you're practicing your yoga with grasping, you're not practicing yoga at all. It's just the way it is. You're deepening your attachment to samsara if you're practicing with grasping, with graha. Okay, I love that pose. Come through the twist and slowly release. Well done. And lay on what I call your back. Tumors don't know, can't see that in the room there has been hung some rainbow material. And I've made the presumption to celebrate Padmasambhava, who we have on the shrine today. Padmasambhava's attainment of rainbow body, which is the idea that at death, one doesn't die, but one meditates oneself into pure consciousness, and therefore one remains. There's a film with Scarlett Johansson. I can't remember what it's called now. Can't remember. Anyway, she takes this sort of drug by accident and becomes, she eventually turns into pure consciousness. It's got Morgan Freeman in it as well, so it's a pretty good film straight away.
Lucy?
And then there's a similar occurrence in one of the Star Wars films, where one of the more recent ones, where Luke Skywalker meditates into everything. In the scene, he meditates, then levitates, and then disappears entirely. Now, these are, of course, sort of metaphors for the mind not clinging to individuation, but realizing that which what we formerly called me, actually belongs to everything, is actually codependent. And at that point, this is called the realization of Prakriti, the discernment of Prakriti. Then one's true nature is revealed as timeless, deathless, ageless. Let's lift up the feet now. Let's bring our arms with the hands together through the legs and lift our heads up. So we're sort of cutting through the middle of the pose with our hands. And we're just going to move the hands backwards and forwards a little, keeping the chin perhaps quite close to the chest. I quite like to lift the pelvis for this, for a little bit more abdominal crunch. And eventually we're going to hold the big toes after a bit of crunching. And then we're going to return the head to the block. And we're going to take a couple of really deep breaths. And during these deep breaths, we are allowing the neck, the lower back, the tailbone, the shoulders, the chest, allowing things to be the way they are. We often come in straight away, like ignore, ignore the way things are. Not the way that we conceptualize them or speculate them to be, but just the way they are. So sometimes people say this is the post-truth age, where, there are alternative truths and then, mainstream truths, and people getting very animated about them, arguing one way or the other. But yoga says, don't let the mind get tinted by anything at all. Reality is like this. So we don't need to be tense. We don't need to be defended. Because all we need to know is now. And it is now, isn't it? And then there's a power in that. The power of now. Keep borrowing that title from one of those books I've never read. Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which I'm sure purchased him one or two rather nice houses somewhere, sold rather well. And I've been told it's a marvelous book. He seems like a marvelous marvelous sort of guy, Eckhart Tolle. So, but that is worth understanding, that now gives power. You know, the knowing of now manifests power. The power to know, the power to act, the power to will. And we're going to open the angle of the knees up a little bit now. How much? Up to you. It could be quite a lot, could be totally stretching, extending the legs. Some people even like to take the hands from the big toes with extended legs and push on the heels. That's a possibility if you wanted to. It's something I quite enjoy. You might want to roll this way or that. It's all about the breath. And then bringing the legs back together and swapping both hands over to one leg. And simply, or one foot, and simply pushing the leg down towards the floor to the side of the rib cage. It's fine for the body to completely roll over. You know, it's like as you push, you sort of roll. It's fine. If it's hard to reach the foot, you can do this on the shin, just pulling on the shin. And then we're going over to the other leg, simply pushing, not holding the breath at all, melting. The thing about physical tension is for it to melt, and it doesn't have to melt to any particular level of fluidity, but just has to melt from where it is. And for it to melt, the mind has to melt too. Okay. Nice and easy release from both legs, both feet down, breathing through the nose. Remove the head support. Place the hands underneath the head, fingers interlaced. Let's take a few really expressive breaths now. Very simply, letting the pectoralis soften itself. What tenses the pectoralis, the chest muscle tissue, is tension generally. What creates tension generally is doubt, samshaya, one of the obstacles to yoga. And what creates doubt is this belief that there's supposed to be somebody, a person that is in some way fixed in space and time and description. And we're supposed to believe that person is who we are. And that's very, very tense. It causes a lot of doubt because reality is constantly contravening that belief by showing us that the person that we think we are is co-created all the time by events within and without. As George once said, life flows on within you and without you. Thanks, George. Lift up your feet. That's George Harrison, by the way, in case you don't know the song. Lift your head. Breathe through your nose. Lift your feet. Jaw soft. Open the angle at the back of your knees without pulling or yanking on the neck. Alternatively, swapping elbow towards knee and knee towards elbow. They come towards each other. We'll do it 3 times on each side before the next sequence, which will be same thing but raising and descending once each leg. We'll do 3 of those as well, as calm as we can be, raising and descending each leg. And finally, Back to center and down when you've finished. Head first, feet second. And deep, 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 deep breaths without holding the breath at all. Variations on Setu Bandhasana. So let's just start with a little movement of the back muscles by letting one leg move slightly down the inside of the other. So the legs just move to one side and the other, but with one moving a little faster than the other. So one leg moves down the inside of the other, and then you swap with the feet on the floor. Just one leg moving down the inside of the other, and the other just moving over a little bit to accommodate that movement. Once we've got a little movement in the back, we keep the heels quite close to the buttocks. We've got the hands under the head for this version, which we're not going to lift particularly high. We lift the pelvis up off the floor. And then move your pelvis left, right, up, down. You know, shake it, tilt it, bounce it, swoop it, sway it. But the purpose, we always want to turn back to this, you know, we have lila, great, nothing wrong with lila, but lila that's on purpose, play that's just unpurposed, cannot lead to yoga. We need artha, purpose. The purpose of our play is absorption. So play that is purposed to absorption, that changes the way we play. That defines the way we play. The why we play defines the how we play. And because we want to make sure this really, really works and we're not just living a sort of second order reality version of it, our final part is lakshana, signs that the absorption is really happening. Breath opens up, doubt disappears, is replaced by intuition. Eventually, you float back down. Once you're down, everyone takes at least 2 or 3 deep breaths. Really, really letting go. Really letting go. Releasing your hands for our second version of Setu Bandhasana, for which I'd like you to use a belt, a patika. So hopefully you've got a patika somewhere in your vicinity. And that goes around your shins. And you're going to hold the belt with your arms extended as far down the belt as you can. So you might even reach quite far down. As you reach down, you can already start turning your arms out, which will lift your back or your spinal column off the floor. So the only thing that remains will be the inner edge of your shoulder blades, the back of your skull, and the sacrum, the back of the pelvis. Then we lift up the bum. And as we lift up again, we can play with tilting, moving, and so on. But this time we're going to twist the belt. We're going to twist it right out. And breathe through the nose. So we're moving left, right, up, down. We're twisting the belt, turning it outwardly. Opening the chin. Opening the chest, rather, towards the chin. And breathing through the nose if you can. Trying not to be tight around the lower back or pelvic floor might mean you need to sway and tilt and bounce and so on. Coming down, you inwardly twist the belt, let your shoulder blades move out away from each other, put the belt to one side, rest your hands wherever they're comfortable, and breathe through your nose, deep, natural, easeful, honest. So jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft, deep, natural, honest. Rolling over for Shana Marichasana. We're going to bend the leg we're laying on, extending the other ones. I'm very keen to get in. We'll draw the tummy, lift, turn, Come to your elbows, forearms, and wrists. Light tone in the belly. Playful and investigative. Top leg on top of the bottom leg. Simply curl up. Push up. Same pose. Other side. Shayana Marichasana. Leg bent. 90 degrees, I should have mentioned, between the thigh and the pelvis, and 90 degrees between the calf and the thigh. 2 sets of 90 degrees. The psoas is extended as it attaches to the top of the inner thigh. So we extend the inner thigh down. We extend the other end of the psoas by sucking the tummy in, pushing down, lifting and turning. Elbows, forearms, wrists. Keep that jaw passive. Keep that breath natural, investigative, looking for fluidity, looking for space, looking for fluidity, both in the breath and the body simultaneously. If it's in one place, it's in both. That's one of the signs. So the play is the movement. The purpose is absorption, which we can feel as space and fluidity, absorption in space and fluidity. And the lakshana, the sign of absorption, is feeling absorbed, deeper breathing, spontaneous movement. Top leg on top of the bottom leg, simply curling up, coming up into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, pushing back to take the pressure off the wrists. You push it back through the spine, and the heels go back, but not down. If you try and press the heels down, the game's over. You're dead in the water. But if you draw the heels back while feeling the back of the thighs draw forwards, whilst feeling the front of the thighs rise towards the skies, to your surprise, you'll find the top of the thighs draw back and release the psoas through the deep belly. So you get the top of the thighs drawing back, the deep belly extending, while the arms remain extended as well. The lumbar should feel like you're aware, like you've got energy moving through it. Coming forwards, if it's difficult on your wrists, you can do this on your forearms. But remember that sometimes difficulty on the wrists, even discomfort in the wrists, can be helped. Even if it's uncomfortable, the pressure, it can help to get some stretch there. But of course, sometimes it's just too much, so you can do it on the forearms if you need to. So this is the Kumbhakasana, and we're breathing into it. The Chaturanga Dandasana is very popular. When it finishes, we hover the body above the floor. We push up to the Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Toes can be tucked under. There can be lots of scope for play, or you can have the toes pointing back if you prefer. Loosening from the inner groins through to the deep belly is a very useful focus for this pose. Knees drop, hands and knees, breath deep, 2 or 3. Take the arm furthest from me, thread it underneath. 1, 2, 3. Stop it now, Jim. Bring the arm furthest from me, underneath you, towards me, palm up, and the other arm extends out. So this is a version of Suchirandrasana. You can feel stretch on the shoulder. Meditation. So lila, play, can manifest as something that can be seen externally, subtle movement or strong movement externally, or something that can only be felt or seen internally. So sometimes there's a sense of play, a sense of release. You can almost feel like you're releasing energy through the body. That is a form of play, a form of reaching out. Think about what play is, a form of reaching out into the world to see what it's like, to touch it, as it were. Retracting your extended arm and pushing, coming back to hands and knees, and if you're me, turning around, but you can just do the other side from where you are. The other arm goes underneath, palm up, extending out to fingertips, tented fingers to extend the anterior spine, which is where we commonly visualize the Madhya Nadi, central channel, Madhya Nadi. Perhaps you can so naturally sense this, a sense of a channel. Sometimes yogins have visualized it spontaneously with a color that just happens sometimes. Quite common for yogins to visualize it as blue, the central channel. But it could be any color you want. As long as you feel it, as long as you sense it. Retract your extended arm, push into the floor, back to hands and knees. Take a breath or two. We're going to come to kneeling or other comfortable seated position, facing forwards. You can put a block between the heels and buttocks. You can put a rolled up blanket underneath the front ankles. So both of those can make it much more bearable. A block between the heels and buttocks, a rolled up blanket underneath the front ankles, or 2 blocks. And the pose is called Vajrasana. We're breathing with one palm on top of the other in Dhyana Mudra. And letting the breath just flow, very natural, very honest, letting the bum really settle, letting the jaw relax. Meditating in Brighton town centre, it's like this. Yeah. Bring your hands to the heart. We're going to chant Om 3 times, placing it into the heart center as a way of orientating ourselves to stay in the heart center, whatever the movement of the world be, whether the world we count as the world as the mind, the world as the body, the world as other people, the world as the weather, the world as whatever, politics. So we're going to chant Om 3 times to anchor ourselves in the heart so that all our speech, action, and thought comes from the heart. Take a deep breath in. And the last one. And a few more deep breaths. Just reflecting that the nerves aren't personal. They're co-created. The nerves, the condition of the nerves is co-created. Releasing your hands. We're going to lay down on our backs for Shavasana, total surrender. And rather impeccably, if I do say so myself, I've allowed 3 whole minutes for Shavasana, which will still leave us finishing precisely at 8 o'clock. It's incredible. Shoulder blades scooted under, palms facing up. Melting moments. Melting moments. Melting into the moment. Melting as the moment. Actions, speech, thoughts that are an expression of the power of now are karmaless. Actions, speech, thoughts that are an expression of the power of now are karmaless. They're non-productive. That's how a rainbow body happens. Particle returns to the field and no clinging remains. Feel, therefore, action coming from surrender in the form of movements of the toes and fingers and any other spontaneous movements of the body. Bending your legs, placing the soles of the feet onto the floor, scooting the buttocks under, taking some deep breaths. Rolling over, facing away from the shrine side of the room. And rolling back over to face towards the shrine side of the room. Letting in light and color. And bringing yourself up nice and easy. Bringing your hands to prayer position, facing towards the shrine. It's probably hard for you Zoom the people to be able to see perhaps, but here on Padmasambhava's Trishula, there are 3 different colored heads. One is white, one is blue, one is red. These represent various things, but also in particular the bija mantras Om, Ah, and Hong, representing thought, speech, and action, or body, or mind, speech, and body. So we're going to chant Om, Ah, Hum if we agree with the following statement. May any benefit that we've gained interacting in this way this morning be shared for the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om, Ah, Hum. Thanks everyone for your time. Finished on time, that's unusual. Yes. Thanks so much for coming, Zoomers. Really appreciate it. Don't forget I'm running an immersion, winter solstice immersion. That's an advert. It's the only advert I'm doing. Love you all. See you.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye.